Hi guys, this is another Behind the Beat interview at Black Music Canada. I'm your host, Brianna, and today we are here with
Keekz. Just Keekz.
and Keekz. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're here today?
Yeah, so I'm the founder and host of web series talk show, Talkin Hip Hop. I also go by Just Keekz, and I'm here just to kind of talk about talking hip hop, what we do, share the story behind our web series.
So can you tell us what you do and why you started Talkin Hip Hop?
Absolutely. So I founded Talking Hip Hop in 2019.
Okay.
And it mainly just started off as this platform for upcoming artists in the city to come on and talk about what they're doing.
And the city, you mean Toronto?
Toronto, yeah, Toronto. So it basically, I started off as a YouTuber, and I was making very generic content. Like it was like get ready with me and like vlogs, and I had very little views. I had barely any subscribers, and I remember thinking like, oh, it would be cool if there was like this media platform or a show where emerging artists and singers and just anyone, beginner YouTubers, can come on and kind of gain recognition or try to build a fan base. And I'm like, no one's really interviewing artists that have very little followers or talented people, you understand? So it was just like, I just saw so much talented people at the time, and none of them had a large amount of followers. So I said like, I want to create a show, and if I did, I'd have no problem finding guests because I was meeting a lot of people around the time. So that's kind of what started the show. And now we're 28 interviews in, and it's been going on for almost 5 years. And it's something I really enjoy doing.
Wow. Yeah. And you said you started it in 2019. That's like right before the pandemic.
Oh, yeah. That was a challenge.
So how did you get through that?
You know what? I had to pivot. It was funny because the way that I am, I like to do things a certain way.
Right.
So when something happens and it kind of alters how I guess run the show, it became problem. It became a problem. So basically, I was talking with a friend, and I'm like, you know what? It's COVID. I don't know how to carry on with these interviews. Like, what do you think I should do? And he suggested, why don't you do Zoom interviews? And I was like, no, it has to be done this way. Like, I can't mess it up because that's just me, you know?
You're like a perfectionist.
Yes. Yeah. And he's just like, well, you'll lose out if you don't do it this way. We don't know when COVID, this is when we didn't know what the outcome of would be. And I tried it. And then, so if you go back and you actually look at some of our previous episodes, there's a ton of them where it's just through Zoom. So that was how we kind of navigated through it. You know, we had to just do interviews on Zoom, and in a lot of ways it was easier, actually.
Really?
Because I didn't have to book the recording space. I didn't have to find the camera crew, and so it was a little more manageable doing it from home. The only thing that was tricky is getting the artists in good lighting during Zoom.
Fair.
It was that was the problem, but otherwise, the Zoom interviews, it was a good moment for talking hip hop.
And so, in what ways do you think talking hip hop contributes to the music community, especially in Toronto?
Yeah, I think one of the things that makes talking hip hop stand out is the fact that we're not interviewing artists that already have buzz and have a fan base. The show is designed for those emerging stars that no one's paying attention to. So talking hip hop is kind of there to bridge the gap, and I think that's the way that we can help the Canadian music scene, because as we were talking about it off camera, there's not many shows like that. Like, let's show, and of course, like, I'm not saying I don't want to interview the larger artists. As the show grows, I'd love, like, that's my goal, is to interview artists abroad. But right now we're focusing on, and not just artists, like creative entrepreneurs, people that are just doing extraordinary things, but no one's looking at them because they don't have the following.
I mean, why do you think that because we were talking a little bit about this earlier, but why do you think so many Canadians don't really not support but pay attention to Canadian artists, especially like the small ones?
Yeah, You know what I think it is, and I was talking to someone about this not too long ago, but Canada is known, or like Toronto especially, is known for like being the screw face city or whatever you want to call it. And something I've learned from interviewing these emerging Canadian stars is they all say the same thing, and it's just like Toronto doesn't really support you as much as someone would in the States.
Really?
Yeah, and I hear that a lot. So that's why these little underground showcases are so important and essential. I noticed like showcases, especially the ones, there's always a few happening downtown Kensington. They are really supportive. But as a whole, I don't see a lot of Canadians supporting Canadian artists. And I think another reason for that is people just want to support who's like
already popular,
in the forefront. That's what I think it is. I think people just want to support who already has the followers, who already has this, and that is something that I think is the issue with what's going on right now.
Yes, especially when I hear some people complain about the artists who are popular, and it's like, well, you can support the artists who aren't. You can go out and find these artists on your own,
and some of them are extremely talented.
So talented. So like it's incredible what they're able to do just by themselves at home.
No, 100%.
From your conversations with artists, what are your thoughts on the current Canadian music industry?
Kind of what we just to kind of piggyback of what I'd said in the last question, but same thing. One of the biggest challenges I'm finding with the artists is they feel like they don't have enough support. They always kind of say the same thing, that there's this lack of support, lack of resources.
Right.
So like even this publication, Black Music Canada, so important.
Thank you.
Yeah, so important.
Thank you.
Talkin Hip Hop, so important because they don't have a space to go. And like, I'm not sure if you remember, in the States they used to have 106 in Park. It was this old, it was on BET where they would interview artists, play music video, do countdowns. It was an interview show.
Yeah.
And they only, of course, I loved 106 in Park, but let's be honest, they weren't interviewing people that don't have the backing.
Yeah.
It was just big celebrities, but we don't have that here.
Do you think nowadays we're just waiting for people to get popular?
Yes. I 100% think that is true. I mean, I did a documentary a few years ago.
Really?
Yeah, I directed one, and it was about this. It was about the lack of support underground artists receive, and how we only pay attention to A-list celebrities. Yeah, check that out. It's on my YouTube channel. It's called Upcoming in the City.
Okay.
On my YouTube channels.
Okay.
That I definitely talk about it. I follow 3 different artists, and funny enough, they don't know each other, but they all have the same story. No one's supporting me. I really hope that it changes in the future.
Me too. I think we have some incredible talent that's just waiting to be discovered and platformed a lot more. I don't know what it is with Canadians and why. I don't know. Is it just because like Canada just isn't cool or something?
I don't know what it is. And there's an artist by the name of Raz Fresco.
Okay.
And he's starting to build a lot of buzz. He is a Canadian rapper, and he recently dropped an EP or album. And he said that, I think he put out a tweet, but it's funny because the people that shared the album were all from the States, and he's like, no one from Toronto shared my album, and I was like, wow.
Oh my gosh.
So that's even a prime example of exactly what we're talking about.
Is it because maybe more Canadian artists are focused on getting to the States?
Yes, I think you hit a nail there. I think everyone's focused on how do I get out of here. That they're not focusing on what is here.
That is so true.
Yeah.
That is so true. Oh my gosh. But we still love our Canadian artists, of course, guys.
Yeah.
Of course. So, knowing all of that and talking about all of that, where do you see the Canadian music industry going in the future? Do you see it getting bigger, or do you see it maybe shrinking?
Yeah, that's a great question. I always try to be hopeful because my goal is, I wouldn't have this show if I didn't have any hope for the future of the Canadian scene for music. But I hope that we start to see more artists that you know, maybe didn't start off with a lot, start to kind of get attention. I hope the Canadian music scene kind of starts focusing on lyrical rappers. I think we pay so much attention to what they call mumble rap or the new school.
Yeah.
But I think there's so much talent with those old school kind of rappers that have that older sound with that lyrical feel. So I'd love for them to be more highlighted. And you also have to think about it. When people like Drake retire, Justin Bieber, like all these Canadian stars, who's coming next? Like what's gonna happen with the Canadian music scene?
No idea, zero idea. Unless I don't know, Drake opens up a school for artists or something. But we can move on to the next question, which I would love to know. What's your most interesting story from working on Talkin Hip Hop?
Wow, there's so many. I actually was telling my mom about this the other day. Super full circle moment, but before I knew the show would be called Talkin Hip Hop, before it existed, I was in college and I was chatting with one of my friends, and we were both just saying, like, what is your plans after graduating? Like, what are your career goals? Yeah.
That heavy conversation.
That heavy conversation. And this, again, I did not know I would be doing Talking Hip Hop. I just said, you know what? I would like to have my own, like, talk show. And I remember just sharing that with him. And I didn't say it was Talking Hip Hop. I was like, I just want to have a talk show where I interview upcoming artists. And he said, oh, okay, cool. And he was like the first, I remember so clear as if it happened yesterday. He was the first person I told about it. Fast forward now, 4 years later, I actually hired him to be one of my camera ops for like a gig I had.
Gosh.
And I was just like thinking, like, it was just so like, I don't know, airy, a little uncanny. I was just like
you spoke it into like creation, like it's happening.
Exactly. I felt like I really spoke that into existence.
And how did you feel?
You know what? I didn't even bring it up to him. I was just kind of like telling my mom about it. I think the day before, I shared to her like, do you know my friend? His name's Joel. I'm like, he was the first person I told about the show before the show was even the show, and now I hired him to be like, yeah. I was just like, wow. I think that would be a really standout moment for me.
That's wonderful.
Oh yeah.
But now a harder question. What was your most challenging moment?
In the very early stages of the show, I was doing all of the production roles. So not only was I interviewing the artist, I was the camera person, I was the audio person, everything, you name it. So in some of the first few episodes, I'd actually put the camera down, try to be focused on the interview, but all I'm thinking about in the back of my mind is it recording? Is the audio recording?
Gosh.
It used to make my head spin. I remember like I feel so anxious all the time because all I could think of is no one's behind there to make sure it's recording.
So was there ever a moment where it wasn't?
There's one episode, I'm not gonna say which one,
okay.
But I was interviewing someone and I had to just keep pausing and okay, is it recording? Okay. And it was just a lot. So I think shout out to my cameraman right now, Ferdy. Super grateful for him. The team is not as huge as it is yet because it's still something a work in progress, but at least I have a little more help than I did back then.
At least you don't have to be let me check.
The headaches are gone now. It was really bad. It was really bad.
It's a terrifying moment for sure.
Yeah.
And I think our videographer Addie understands. Okay, and you've interviewed many artists. You know their highs and their lows. So what advice would you have for any artist watching now? Would you give to them for their careers?
Yeah. Something I would highly recommend, and this is not just for artists, this is general advice. Consistency, and I know everybody says it, and I know it's kind of like the cliche thing to say, but consistency is so key. From interviewing these artists, all of them say the same, like, you know, if you're an artist putting out music consistently, there's that saying, if you hang around in the barber shop long enough, eventually you'll get your hair cut. If you keep putting music out, eventually someone's going to recognize it. But if you're putting out one music here, and then 5 months later you're putting another song out.
Yes, it's true. It's true. Because when I am searching for artists, I am searching for someone who has like posted recently. Because if I see you haven't in like 6 months or a year, I'm like, oh,
last time you posted 2017. Yeah.
I'm like, oh,
how can I come up with questions to ask you?
I don't know what to do here. So definitely, I want to sign off on that, guys.
Consistency. Oh yeah. Please. And again, you can apply that to all avenues of life, not just here. You know, if you want to build a better body and a better physique, consistency in the gym, like it could go for anything.
Guys, if you want your body to be T, gym,
the body T,
consistency,
very demure.
Oh my god!
I just felt I had to throw
mindful.
that in. Yes. Very consistent.
So, one final question.
Okay.
We would love to know, what is the future of Talkin Hip Hop?
I love that question. Well, I recently developed this new series within Talkin Hip Hop called On the Fly. And On the Fly is basically this series where we go to public places and interview the public. Okay. So we go to really bustling, busy areas. Okay. Like the malls, and I pick a trending topic going on in hip hop or pop culture, and we get the public's opinion. So I'd love to be doing more of that in the future. Definitely will keep doing my longer form interviews, and I'd like to go global. Like, I'd like to interview artists outside of Toronto.
I would definitely love to hear their opinions.
Oh yeah. And not only just the On the Fly, but just interviewing artists outside of Toronto is kind of a long-term goal for me later on.
Girl. So when I see you on CBC Radio,
I remember her.
I know that girl.
We did an interview back in the day.
Well, guys, thank you for being here. We were here with Keekz today. We had a lovely interview, guys. Check her out on her socials. What would those socials be?
So you can keep up with their show at Talkin Hip Hop Show. That's Talking without the G, Hip Hop Show on IG and TikTok. And if you want to follow my personal account, it's at just Keekz _ So that's just Keekz, KEEKZ _.
Well, guys, that was the interview. Thank you for watching. Bye.